No locking nut.
No locking nut. The whole first record. Yeah.
Stock Fender tremolo.
With this guitar.
Eddie Van Halen bought a factory-second guitar body from a scrap heap for $50 and created one of the most imitated guitars in rock history. In late 1976 or early 1977, Eddie was frustrated. Every guitar he picked up didn't do what he wanted. Gibson's had a thick, harmonically rich tone, a sound he craved like Eric Clapton but didn't have a whammy bar. Stratocasters had a great vibrato system, but the tone was too thin even after he installed a humbucker on his 61 Strat. He had even ruined a Gibson ES-335 when trying to modify it, accidentally sanding through the wood with a belt sander. Nothing worked. "What I wanted wasn't really a Strat-style body," Eddie later explained, but the Strat had the best vibrato bar available at the time before the Floyd Rose, so Eddie decided to make his own guitar. He went to Wayne Charvel's shop in Azusa, California. At the time, Charvel sold replacement bottas and necks made by Lynn Ellsworth's Boogie Bottas. Eddie stopped by the factory and found what he was looking for at the bottom of a scrap heap, a Stratocaster body made of ash that he called a piece of junk. The body was a second-grade item, meaning it had defects that prevented it from being sold as a premium component. Price: $50. He picked up an unfinished maple neck for $80. The neck was wider than usual, almost as wide as a classical guitar. Total capital, $130. Back in his room in Pasadena, Eddie got to work. The ash body was already routed for 3 narrow Fender-style pickups. Eddie wanted a Gibson PAF humbucker in the bridge position for that thick Clapton sound. So he took woodworking tools and manually enlarged the pickup cavity until the larger humbucker fit. He positioned the humbucker backwards closer to the bridge because he wanted a sound with more bite and edge on the end. Then came the wiring problem. Eddie admitted that he was no electronics expert. He didn't remember or couldn't understand how to connect the tone control or multiple pickups at once. So he did the simplest thing. I wired the pickup to the volume knob and it worked. So I left it at that. That was enough. One pickup. One volume knob, nothing else. For years after that, all the guitars I built myself only had one volume knob, Eddie said. There's just one volume, that's it. I don't use fancy tone knobs. I see a lot of people with sophisticated guitars with lots of switches, equalizers, and treble boosters. Just one knob is enough, done. Simple and sounds cool. He covered the 2 empty pickup cavities with roughly cut pieces of black vinyl. He installed Gibson jumbo frets and a brass nut, then filed the nut wider so the A and D strings could move a bit, a trick to keep the guitar in tune when he wailed on the whammy bar. He removed the vibrato tailpiece from his old 61 Strat and installed it on the new body. For the paint job, he grabbed bicycle spray paint and headed to his parents' garage. He sprayed the body with a few coats of black acrylic lacquer. Then he applied masking tape in a random crosshatch pattern and sprayed white paint. After the tape was removed, the black and white stripes appeared. The whole guitar looked handmade, like something a young kid made with rudimentary woodworking tools. And that's exactly what it was. Eddie plugged it into an amplifier. The sound was exactly what he was after. The thick Gibson humbucker tone blended with the functionality of the Fender whammy bar. Big and round when needed, but sharp and clear when playing fast. I bought the body for $50 and the neck for $80, then installed a used Gibson PAF pickup that was rewound to my specifications, Eddie said. Basically, I wanted more control. He took it to the studio in late 1977 to record Van Halen's debut album. The guitar, tuned down a half step to E-flat, can be heard throughout the album. The pick scrapes on Runnin' with the Devil, the rhythmic bursts on You Really Got Me, and the 1-minute 42-second instrumental Eruption that so confused the editor of Guitar Player that he asked the editor of Keyboard Magazine if it was even played with a guitar. When the album was released in 1978, Eddie posed with the black and white striped guitar on the album cover. The Frankenstrat, as the guitar began to be called, immediately became a sensation in the guitar community. Months later, guitar companies began shamelessly imitating it. The minimalist configuration of one humbucker, one volume knob, and a whammy bar appeared everywhere, from cheap imported Hondo guitars to expensive Schecter models. Even Charvel, the shop that sold the original guitar components, began selling a replica called the Van Halen model.